and welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. I'm so excited to be in the studio today, looking at a perspective of life that a lot of people really just hang on to. And my guest today has written the book on the release of those things that hold us back from really reaching our purpose and our passion, our destiny. I'm so excited to have Orrin Rudolph on the show today because he's somebody that I've known for the last 5 years. I've seen him touch the nation in more ways than I've ever dreamed somebody could touch. Tens of thousands of people. For the last 15, 20 years, he's an international speaker, author, and a great friend of mine. I'm so grateful to have Orrin Rudolph on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, it's always good.
It's always good. Yes.
Yeah. So I want to get into something you've created recently as you came out with a book, and I'll let you talk about the title and how you came up with this title, but more specifically, even what led to the creation of this book. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Pat. It's really great to be here. Such a broad question, how do people really come up with books and where do they come from? And, honestly, what really sparked the idea, I wanted to write. I've always wanted to be an author. When I moved from my hometown and homeland of South Africa over here, I'd actually already been writing a book, more of a novel. And through some interesting experiences, I actually lost almost half of it through a crash, and because I hadn't saved it on certain drives, and really discouraged me. And I went through a journey of just, putting down my pen and saying, what, if that's the disappointment that I was going to face, I wasn't going to do that anymore. But as I started speaking and going around the country, speaking to people about different aspects, especially things like emotions and relationships and dealing with communication issues and difficult people and so on, especially in one of the topics that I was training and speaking in, that was a real passion of my life, was how to manage emotions. One of the areas in my life that I always battled with was just dealing with my own emotions in life. And often you find that out from the people that you love dearly. You'll say to people, I've got no problem with my emotions, but when your wife says, you have some serious problems with your emotions you need to deal with, you kind of look in the mirror of your relationships, your kids, your wife, and you see there's an issue with those things. But as I was just traveling around the country speaking on this, people would come to me during lunch or afterwards and go, do you have a book? Do you have a book? Do you have a book? Have you written something? Where can we find out more about this topic that I was speaking? Not so much about managing emotions, because as I was training on managing emotions, I realized there was a deeper cause here. It wasn't just about finding 7 ways to quickly make your emotions better, how to hold your anger back or hold your depression back, or, pop a pill, you'll feel better, and so.
Well, what they really want, Orrin, is master manipulation 504, right?
Right. I mean, if I had a little bag of pills and I could have sold them at 50 cents a pill and said, here we go, manage your emotions with this way, but it doesn't work that way. It's fine. We can put the little Band-Aids on and cover it for a little bit, but I'm thinking, just my mind works crazy sometimes. I'm thinking of the Band-Aid commercial where it talks about what we love about Band-Aid is it sticks, and they go in the shower and all that, but the problem is that the world is really a soggy place,
right? And
those Band-Aids that we put on don't stay there, and the cracks start to show. And we might be handling our emotions today, we might be handling our emotions tomorrow, but it just takes one thing for that Band-Aid to fall off and the ugly self comes out. The things we've been trying to hide from people, the things that we've been trying to disguise from people show their ugly head. And sadly, Pat, what I notice is from all those people that would come to me after the shows, after the speaking, after the trainings, was that those ugly times didn't happen to people they didn't care about. They generally happened to the people they cared about. They didn't want to lose their temper with that person. They didn't want to, deal with those issues with those people, but others were hurt inevitably. And so they would come to me and they would ask me the simple question, Is there a book? And honestly, I saw books out there, but I'd read a lot of books on this topic. Now, I know that most of your listeners are going, well, what topic you speaking about? But I'll come back to that. To answer your question simply, I saw a need, and I finally came to the point was, I need to write about this. I need to present a tool, something that is practical, something that's not up here where people go, I don't understand it, or something that makes it so trivial that people go, well, that's too easy to be true. That's too good to be true. I wanted something real.
Right. So what's the name of the book?
The name of the book is called Let It Go, and that's the book over there called Let It Go. As you can see, it's got a beautiful picture, really, heartwarming, gentle, little teddy bears, lambs. I specifically
pain in action.
Yes, I specifically when I didn't like this picture when the artist came back to me, the publisher brought me a few choices, and there were some other choices with anchors and all sorts of other things about this topic, and at first I didn't like this, but the more I stared at this picture, it started to convey a message of exactly what not letting go is. And the name of the book's called Letting Go, and it's the subtitle is How to Gain Freedom from Your Past and Power for Your Future.
Yeah.
So that is the book.
One of the things that I know that when you're dealing with someone that has explosive behavior, someone that when they get angry, they stay angry for a long time. I mean, like sometimes days or more. Some people live in anger. And I think about that and I go, I believe that adults under pressure, kids in big clothing, at about the teenage level, 12, 13. And what I've seen over and over again, tell me if this is consistent with what you're even trying to help people with, is that there's a critical event that happens in a person's life between 9 and 14, typically. That critical event becomes a stake in their psyche, that if anything in the future sounds like, smells like, or feels like that, you go back and relive that emotion into the present, shredding your relationships and your rapport with others. And is that some of the things that you're wanting people to begin to just let that go, and why it's so important? Because I know as we're wrapping this section up, I want to get into that in the next section where we really look at how can we let it go, and how can we really release those things that we keep holding on to that hold us back from everything that we want in our life. This is a Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. My guest, Orrin Rudolph. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. My guest today is Orrin Rudolph. I'm so grateful to have him here. Folks, if you're someone that has had a long time dealing with certain pains, most specifically if anger is one of the biggest emotions that you wrestle with, there's a process to go through. Orrin wrote the book, and it's not just It is called Let It Go, but it's not just something that's easy. It's a process. Folks, we got to know the process. Orrin, what's the process that people can go through to begin to let it go, and why is it so important?
Well, thank you, Pat. Just something that you had mentioned earlier where you were speaking about the 10th or 9 through 13 years. One of the keys to really letting it go is identifying the wounds that you have picked up over the years. Now, it's true, a lot of wounds do take place in the early times, especially during that puberty period when a lot of people are going through. It's interesting how many divorces, how many times during that period of time that kids go through those type of wounds. But throughout our lives, we're taking wounds. And one of the things that I really wanted to make this book so practical is firstly to quickly identify areas that we have taken wounds. And then what we have done to try and push those wounds back and hide them and plaster over them and really just try and many times ignore them, and how the detriment of doing that and what that brings up later in life, not only in your own life, but within the lives of the people that you love the most dear in your life, and so that you keep close. Unfortunately, unforgiveness and not dealing with those issues really not only affect you, but it affects everyone around you. And if you're a leader of an organization and you've got unforgiveness, you'll start taking it out on your employees. You'll start taking it out on your customers and clients. You won't even know it. If you're a pastor of a church and you've got unforgiveness as an issue, and might be because you went through a church split or some pain in
That's
the
right.
past in a church, you could be subconsciously taking things out and wondering why you seem to be hitting a brick wall in certain areas. If you are a mother or a father who you have kids that you are dealing with and working with, you know, the scary thing, I just tell you this. So I've got 2 daughters, right? And I was disciplining the one, or really just losing my temper with the one. And because I had issues. And, be it that we get into some of those issues this week.
The funny is, I'm pretty certain that all of us have issues that have issues, okay?
Well, I need your therapy. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's all good.
We've all got issues. But I had, and I had some serious issues. And this is before I wrote the book and before I started working through those things. But I was taking it out on my oldest. And then I walked away, and not even 5 minutes ago, you heard my oldest fighting with my youngest, and I got all mad and I was going to go and deal with it. And then I started hearing some words coming out of her mouth, and those words were similar to the words that I had spoken. All she was doing was duplicating my anger. She was duplicating my issues. You see, the sad thing is that we, monkey see, monkey do.
What we do in moderation, they will do to excess.
Exactly. And it hit me. I started saying, dealing with my issues is no longer just about me.
Right.
It's about my kids. It's about the generations that come after me. If I don't deal with my stuff, if I don't deal with my baggage, if I don't deal with my weight, am I not being selfish? Because I am not only got my own weights and I'm holding back for my success as being a husband, as being a father, as being whatever I want to become. I'm holding that back, but I'm passing on my weights to my family. Mm-hmm. I'm handing them over and saying, you know what? Why don't you just carry that on for another generation? Mm-hmm. Why don't you just carry that on for another while? And isn't that selfish?
It's funny, but so many people don't even realize they're doing it.
No.
I mean, we say, I don't want to be like my parents. I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to be like my mom. I don't want to be like that. And you know what? Many times, what do? We end up being just like them.
Yep. Yeah.
And so the thing that I'm curious is, if you begin to see that some of that baggage is still there.
Right.
I mean, I believe that unforgiveness is drinking the poison you want someone else to die from.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
What can we do? What are some real steps that somebody could do right now to begin to identify and then even begin the process?
That's a great question. Can I say something just before I answer that question? And maybe we'll do that in the next section, or answer that question. But I'm thinking of some of the things that I carried from that were passed on to me. Racism, sexism, denominationism, things that I didn't even realize that were passed on. I came from a country called South Africa. And South Africa, as most people know, is a country that was mired in racism. But racism wasn't the only issue. And I'm sure that most of people, sexism, I came from a church where, a woman couldn't speak in the church because women couldn't preach. They weren't pastors. I came from denominationism, where denominations were better than other denominations. And these were all passed on. These were unforgivenesses that were passed on to me. And I'll say this, and I know that we've got to get to the next thing, but I'll say this. My revelation, one of my revelations came way back then when I came to revelation of that I was a racist. And be it that people are watching you are Christians or not, I really felt that God spoke to me, and He said, I felt the word saying, forgive black people. And I was like, what? Forgive black people? And he said, not forgive black people, forgive me for making black people. That's what the words. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you are holding a judgment against me for creating black people because you think I've created something inferior by your dirty racism. You're telling me that I'm not good at my creation. And I'll leave it at that because...
Oh, no kidding. Hey, folks, the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar, Orrin Rudolph. More to come in just a second. Thanks so much. And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. I'm here with Orrin Rudolph. We're talking about letting it go, and it's not the Disney tune. This one is letting that thing that you're holding on to that's holding you back. So often people think they've forgiven somebody because they say, I forgive them. And then what do? They see it on the ground and they pick it up and they put those chains back on. You know, what if there's a process? What if there's a way out where when you snap the chains, you walk free? And that's what we want to talk about in this session. Orrin, lead the way.
As I was saying before we took our break, I really felt that God was questioning me and saying, forgive me for creating black people. And I was kind of like a little taken aback.
Oh, yeah.
And pretty much what he was saying is that by holding a judgment, an unforgiveness towards another race, what you were really saying was that, God, you were not good enough to create perfection. You created inferiority. And man, I tell you what, I got on my face and realized that my racism was purely just a judgment against God.
Right.
Racism is a judgment against God. Sexism is a judgment against God. Denomination is a judgment against God because God created all these things. And now we are saying it's not good enough by our stuff. Now, what has that got to do with unforgiveness?
I was going to say it's a judgment against God.
Yes, exactly. And so we hold that, but it comes passed down from generation. And we need to learn to forgive those people we hold judgments against. If we, be it that we need to forgive God, we forgive those people that we think are inferior to us. Maybe they hurt us. Maybe things that happened that, in my story, let it go. I didn't have the right to be racist, but I had reasons to hate black people.
Right.
And my reason was in my life that they had shot my mother, that the black people had killed my cousin, that they had tried to murder my uncle. I had a lot of people that I lost because of the racism wars that were going on in South Africa. And so I held all these judgments.
Right.
I held all these hatreds. And it was twisting me. It was holding me back from what I could become. It was holding me and stealing good relationships that I could have with other people of other races, of other sexes, of other denominations. It was stealing from me. You see, these things don't only hold you back, they steal from you. They steal life from you because there's some beauty about finding about other cultures and other people. And so unforgiveness in that regard, and I was just bringing that up, was stealing from me. It was holding me back.
Yeah. So I know we've got a couple more minutes in the segment. I want to make sure if somebody sees that they're holding something that they need to let go of, is there something they could begin to do to break those chains?
Absolutely. One of the things I speak about in the book, I try to make this as practical as possible.
It's a great book. When I went through it, I was like, this is excellent.
Thank you. And one of the things that I want to make sure is, I deal with all sorts of unforgiveness. It's not only racism and all those things. I just, I was thinking about it.
Point.
Yeah, it's a big point. But things that, people who've been sexually, I've counseled thousands of people. This book is from story upon story of areas of people that I've dealt with in different areas, from sexual abuse to all sorts of other things. And I try to make it practical. And the thing that I made practical, I call it the walk and the talk of forgiveness. The talk is usually the easy part. It's not easy, but it's the easiest part. It's what comes after you speak forgiveness and you go through the steps of the talk. Then comes the walk. And the walk is walking in forgiveness. Because just because you forgave and just because you went through those things that I show you, afterwards, if you don't walk it and you pick up that thing again, that unforgiveness will come back and
Every
take
time.
up your life every time. So what I felt was, I don't want to just show people how to quickly forgive. I want to show them the skill and the ability and give them tools to walk in freedom, not just talk about freedom.
Right. So so you actually have several tools that are practical steps.
Yes.
And the one thing about it is that what's the byproduct of forgiveness? What's the fruit that you gain?
There's so many, but joy, freedom, peace.
Peace. That's the one I know comes. And you know when you've completed the work, when the charge is off the offense.
Yes.
When you think about it and you don't have that charge. So one of the things that I encourage you to do, if you're, get a chance, get the book, and they go to your website, right?
Yeah, you can go to the website to get the book. The book's available in Amazon.com. It's also available on Audibles.
Oh, nice.
So if you go to Audibles, I actually read the book. You can hear my sexy voice. So
There's something wrong with that. I'm glad we're going to a break. Yeah. No, I'm just messing with you. Hey, folks, I just really encourage you to get it. I've read the book. You'll see my review in there, and it's great. I love the way that Orrin puts it together and gives you these action steps. In the next section, we're going to go into more about how to connect to Orrin personally, to hire him as a speaker and have him come to your church, your organization. This is the Business Spotlight, and I'm so grateful you're here. Stick around, more to come. And welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. My guest today is Orrin Rudolph. We're talking about letting it go. And that is letting those things that have held you back from achieving your destiny, your fulfilled life. So often we hold on to things for so long. And Orrin wrote the book on letting that go and living life again, living it with a vitality in all that you do. So Orrin, I know that you've spoken to internationally to thousands and thousands of people. You've touched the nation. This nation has been a blessing here. How can someone reach out to you and actually maybe get you to talk at either their organization or their church or whatever?
Well, thank you, Pat. You can get me on my website at orrinrudolph.com. You can also send me an email at coach, COACH, at orrinrudolph.com to get a hold of me, and we can set up a time. My calendar is pretty full, but I am always willing to make some space. I love just sharing about this topic. In fact, I've been getting a lot of churches that have taken up this as Bible studies and group studies in their church, so much so that people have actually asked me to create a Bible study book or a handbook with it. And in fact, that's what I'm working on next, is a accompanying book that can be used in small groups for churches to deal with this topic of forgiveness and dealing with how to, set people free. Because, one of those areas, one of those things is that if you want to move forward in your life, be it as a Christian or be it as a non-Christian, doesn't really matter. These weights will just hold you back, and they'll hold you back from true freedom. And so if you don't deal with this stuff, if you just stick it under a mat and hope that it'll go away, unfortunately it doesn't. And I've seen this through counseling sessions over and over again, through people who've come and talked to me about issues. So reach out to me. I would love to come and speak about it at a church, in organizations. I work with, companies and help them with their employees.
That's the thing that a lot of that amazes me, is that so many organizations around the country, companies, large companies,
yes,
they know they're dealing with this unforgiveness issue. Their unforgiveness for their managers, the leadership before them. They've gone through a transition or new ownership, and there's all this bitterness, and so the productivity and engagement is record low.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I would look at is the millennials that are coming into the workplace right now. They say that in the next 10 years, 50% of the employed resource, or the number of people that are employed, are going to be millennials.
Yes.
Well, what have millennials lived through? Desert Storm, 9/11, all these different critical events, and then probably a divorce or two.
Yes.
When they were growing up. This is a big issue.
Massive issue. I mean, if you just look at the political atmosphere in our country, and I'm not a big political person, but there's just so much unforgiveness across the aisles at the moment. There's just so much anger in this country at the moment. I can't even open my mouth in front of an opposite party member and mention anyone from one party or the other, and there's already wants to be a fight, and people want to rip your head off. That is not normal. That is something.
I've never seen it that divisive as it is right now. I mean, it's like, put the dukes down, folks.
Yeah. And the feedings force, the poison that feeds all this, is not learning to forgive. You've been hurt by the opposite party somewhere. Something has been said and done. You've held on to it, and it's turned into bitterness. It's turned into poison, and it's feeding this discourse that's going on. No more than ever in this country, in churches, in organizations, that people need to learn to let it go. If you don't, you're going to hinder your future. You're going to hinder, and as I started speaking this earlier on, it's not just about you. It's about your kids.
Oh, yeah.
It's about the generations that are coming up. Stop passing on all your weight. You know how hard it is. You, sitting there in your living room or wherever you're watching this, you know how heavy it is to carry the things that you carry on a daily basis. Sometimes you don't even know that you're carrying it until that explosion comes, or until you're in depression, or until you're popping that pill to try and make yourself happy. The truth is that if you do not deal with this issue, not only are you going to be carrying it, but your kids are going to be carrying it, and the people that you truly love will be carrying the same weight. I talk about passing the pack on, and how people just share weights. I saw this with my wife and me a few years ago, of somebody a boss that I was really bitter about. And when I finally forgave that boss, and then asked my wife a year after that, hey, you want to go to lunch with this boss? Her poisonous reply was no. And I was like, but you never even met this guy ever. But I, through all my speaking, all my whining, all my bitterness, I passed on my unforgiveness towards her. And she didn't even want to speak to this guy and she hadn't even met him. That's one silly little example.
Believe me, I could give you 10.
Right.
I totally feel the same thing. That especially like if it's just like your wife. I remember my wife used to tell me about certain things that were going on in her workplace, and I was like, I mean, I would want to go get, and I'm thinking, where's that coming from? And it's that protection, it's that love. But the thing is that we've got to let it go.
We do.
Yes. So, hey, Orrin, I want to say thank you. Yes. You have been an inspiration to me for years. I have seen your success. I have watched you do amazing things. I'm so proud of this. I'm so excited about the audio as well. And folks, you just need to get it. Yes. Oh my gosh. Let it go is what we need in here.
Yes.
And the more that we can get it in here, the more that you'll be free to become the man or woman that you're supposed to be, that your kids can become what they're supposed to be. Do you really want your children thinking the way you've thought for so many years? Today is a day where you can reach out and create change. You see, I believe that activation is about transforming your pain into your power so you can create your destiny. And I encourage you, take action. Do this now. And I'm just so excited for those of you that are watching this. Watch for more episodes of the Business Spotlight as we bring you ways to grow you faster and your business too. Thanks so much. It's been an honor. I'm Pat Dewar. This is Business Spotlight. We'll see you next time.